Today we're going to go over examples of solving equations that involve the distributive property. For this question, we have negative 3 times the quantity x minus 2 equals 18. So we're going to use the first method we talked about, which is using the distributive property. So what we're going to do to solve this is we're going to distribute our negative 3 to our x, and then distribute the negative 3 to that negative 2 that we have, and then we're going to solve the two-step equation that results. I have minus 2, so I'm going to change that to adding a negative 2, so I don't have any sign issues. Alright, and then from there, I'm just going to multiply. So negative 3 times x, that becomes negative 3x. And I'm going to add negative 3 times negative 2. I'll write that out. Negative 3 times negative 2. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. Guys, when we have a negative times negative, remember we get a positive. So now we have negative 3x plus 6 equals 18. Alright, so we distributed, and now we have a two-step equation like we've been solving last week. So I'm going to solve it using this balancing equations method, but if you want to use the flowchart box method, you can do that too. So I have negative 3 times x plus 6 equals 18. So I'm going to work in reverse PEMDAS order. I have this plus 6. So how do I get rid of, or how do I undo adding 6? I subtract 6. So I have negative 3x plus 6 equals 18. And for that undoing, I'm going to then subtract 6 on this side and subtract 6 on this side. When I do that, I'll get negative 3x plus 0, because 6 minus 6 is 0, which was my point all along, equals 12. So then I have negative 3 times x equals 12. And our last step is to undo what's currently happening to x. Currently, x is being multiplied by negative 3. So I need to divide both sides by negative 3. And that will give me my correct answer, which is x equals negative 4. Negative 3x divided by negative 3, that cancels away to 1, and we're just left with x on this side, and 12 divided by negative 3 is a negative 4. So again, this way, the steps, we distributed that negative 3 using the distributive property. Then we got what we think of as a two-step equation. And then we solve in order to figure out that x equals negative 4. All right, now we're going to look at our second method, which involves dividing both sides of our equation by the coefficient negative 3 out front. To get into why we're doing that, though, I am going to actually draw our flowchart for a second. So if I think about my flowchart method, what that consists of is writing out what is happening to x. Okay, and we do that following the normal order of operations. So I see my x right there, and I want to say, in the correct order, according to the order of operations, what is happening to it? Well, the first thing we have in order of operations is parentheses, or grouping. So what's in parentheses with that x? It's minus 2. So that's actually going to be what goes first. Normally we think about writing multiplication or division there, right? But that's because in the order of operations, multiplication and division happen before addition and subtraction. But what happens in parentheses is always at the top. So first in this problem, we are subtracting 2. And then after we do that, we multiply by negative 3. And that gives us 18. So working backwards then, how do we undo multiplying by negative 3? We divide by negative 3. And how do we undo subtracting 2? We're going to add 2. And when we do that, we are going to get our answer. 18 divided by negative 3, that is negative 6. And negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. So that's it kind of with the flowchart method. But we can do this writing it out as well. So I'm going to do that too. So really we have 3 methods. So this is using that dividing by negative 3 step first, which as you remember, that's the first thing we did with the flowchart. We knew we had to go backwards, reverse the order of operations. That means in this case we need to take care of that -3 first. So to do that, I can divide this entire side by -3. And then of course, if I do it over here, I need to divide by -3 over here. When I have -3 divided by -3, that's going to cancel. That's just 1. That goes away. And I'm left with x minus 2. And then on the right, I have 18 divided by -3. That is -6. And then lastly, I have that second step from my flow chart, which was adding 2. Because how do I undo subtracting 2? I add 2. So I have x minus 2 equals -6. And on both sides, I'm going to add 2. When I do this, -2 plus 2, I get x plus 0 equals -4. So x equals -4, which we've now gotten 3 times, which is great. So any of those methods are awesome. They all work. Normally, this kind of division step will save a little time, but it can be harder, particularly if you don't have a calculator, when this number and this number are not easily divisible. So that's just something to keep in mind. But you can choose. All 3 methods are going to be great for this class and in the future. Okay. And now we're going to go through our final example. So we have 2 times 2x plus 1 equals -32. So we're going to start with the distributing method. So I want to distribute 2 to 2x and 2 to the 1 by multiplying, because that's how we work. We have parentheses. So I have 2 times 2x plus 2 times 1. 2 times 2x plus 2 times 1. And that equals -32 still. All right, on this side, 2 times 2x is 4x. And 2 times 1 is 2. So I get 4x plus 2 equals -32. All right, from there, now I have my 2-step equation. So I'm going to solve my 2-step equation by undoing what's happening to the x. So how do I undo adding 2? I subtract 2. Great. So I'll rewrite 4x plus 2 equals -32. But then I will subtract 2 from both sides. 4x, 2 minus 2 is 0. So I get 4x plus 0 equals, this becomes -34. Right, so then again I have 4x equals -34. On my final step, I need to undo the x being multiplied by 4, so I'm going to do that by dividing by 4. And then I get x equals -8.5. So that's going to be my answer. All right, now let's do that by dividing first, using that method. All right, so I'm going to do this without the flowchart. I know a lot of you like the flowchart. That's fine. You can do it with the flowchart. But I want to get you comfortable with this as well. So I'm going to write it out this way without the flowchart. All right, so with this method, I divide both sides by that coefficient 2 out front first, right? Because I'm working in the reverse order, the order of operations. So I need to do the parentheses last, and I need to start with the multiplication then. All right, so I'm going to divide this side by 2, and I have to then divide my other side by 2. 2 divided by 2, that's 1. That's going to cancel and go away. And here I'm left with 2x plus 1 equals -16. -32 divided by 2 is -16. Then from here I have a 2-step equation. So a fair number of steps in this one. I need to undo what's happening to the x. So I have 2 times x plus 1. I'm going to rewrite 2x plus 1 equals -16. And I want to undo that adding 1. How do I undo adding 1? I subtract 1. So -1, -1. When I do that, I will get 2x plus 0 equals -17. 2x equals negative 17. And then how do I undo multiplying by 2? I divide by 2. And that will also give me x equals negative 8.5, which is the correct answer. So you could have done that with the flow chart as well.